This is 1.2 tables and graphs. So this is a review of evaluating functions when you're given a table or a graph. So let's start with some graphs. The first graph on the left is f of x. So if I want to evaluate f of 0, 0 is the x value. I find 0 on the x-axis, and I trace either up or down to the function and find the y value. So in this case, f of 0 is -2. The graph on the right is g of x, and so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to find 0 to find g of 0. I'm going to find x equals 0, trace either up or down, in this case up to the function, and find the y value, which is 2. For f of -1, I'm going to go over to -1 on my x-axis. I'm going to trace down because that's where my graph is. I'm going to hit the graph and then trace over to the y-axis to find the y value, which in this case is -3. Same thing on g of -4. I'm going to go over to -4, and in this case I don't have to go up or down because this is an x-intercept. So g of -4 is at y equals 0. I can do the same thing with a composition of functions. I always start from the inside when I'm evaluating compositions. So g of 0 we already figured out was 2. So we're going to say f of 2. And I'm going to go up to f. I'm going to find 2, which happens to be an x-intercept. And so f of 2 is 0. G of f of 2, well, I'm going to work from the inside out. So I'm going to find f of 2, which we just found. That happens to be 0. So we're going to say g of 0. And g of 0 we know from up top is 2. Let's try a couple more. So g of f of -2. So f of -2 is where I'm going to start. I'm going to go up to the graph. I'm going to go find -2, trace down to my function, boom, over to my y-axis. That gives me -4. So now this turns into g of -4. G of -4 we know, we already did that one, happens to be 0. Last example on this page, we're going to start with g of -3. So we're going to find f of something. Let me go to g. Let me go to -3. Trace up to my function. I found my spot. I'll trace over to my y-axis. That y value is 1. So now we have f of 1. So I'll go to my function f, go find 1, trace down to my function, over to my y-axis, and f of 1 is -1. On the next page, we're going to be doing the same thing, but this time we're given a table of values instead. So for the first example, it says find f of 3. Well, remember that 3 is an x value. So I'm going to go find 3 in my table. I'm going to look down this table until I find f. F is the first row. So down the column over the row, and I get 6. Let me erase my highlight so that we can do that again. So for the next one, I need to find g of 2. So I'm going to look across g and down 2, and that happens to get me 2. Then I'm also going to do k of 4. So I'm going to go across k and down 4, and I end up with 0. And 2 plus 0 is 2. Next example is phrased a little bit differently, but it's the same idea. It says find 2k of x minus g of x when x is 1. So we're trying to find 2k of 1 minus g of 1. So I'll keep my 2. I'll go up and I'll try and find k of 1. So I'll look across k and down 1, and I get negative 1/2. Then I'll do minus g of 1, so I'll look across g and down 1, and I get 1. 2 times negative 1/2 is negative 1, minus 1 gets me negative 2. Same thing with a composition of functions. So I'm going to start with g of 2 for this next example, because g of 2 is inside of f of something. So g of 2, we've already found, but let's map it anyway. So g of 2 means I'm going to go across g, down where the 2 is, and I get 2. So that turns this problem into f of 2. And then to find f of 2, I'm going to start with f. I'm going to go over to 2, and I end up with 4. Next one. So h of x squared, where x is 2. So that means I'm trying to find h of 2 squared, which means I'm trying to find h of 4. So I'm going to go up to my table. I'm going to look at h. I'm going to go over to 4, and I get 0. This one is a little bit different because the function notation is on the inside of the sine function. So this is sine of k of 4. So it's just like a composition of functions. I'm going to go ahead and find k of 4. So let me erase some of my highlights up here and find k of 4, which is 0. So I'm going to go back down here and make this sine of 0. And sine of 0 we know from the unit circle. So I'm going to think about the unit circle. Where is the angle 0? The sine is the y value, so it's sitting on the x-axis, which means that the sine value is 0.